Imagine a military commander, right, just standing on a hostile beach.
Yeah.
He has just sailed his entire army into enemy territory, and they are vastly outnumbered.
Right, the odds are terrible.
The odds of survival, let alone victory, are mathematically microscopic. And as his soldiers stand there, just looking at the overwhelming force they are about to face, the commander gives the most seemingly insane, irrational order imaginable.
He kills them to burn the ships?
Yes. He turns to his lieutenants and tells them to set fire to their own ships. He orders them to burn the literal only vessels that could possibly take them home.
Which, it completely violates any traditional strategic framework.
Right.
You are eliminating your own safety net. You're guaranteeing that if you fail, you die.
But psychologically, it is perhaps the single most potent maneuver a human being can make.
Absolutely.
Because when those ships turn to ash on the shoreline, the entire mental landscape of that army changes in a millisecond.
There's no retreat.
There is no retreat. There's no fallback plan. The whole concept of, we hope to win evaporates. And it's replaced instantly by the absolute biological imperative of we must win.
And they did.
And they did. Because they had no other choice. Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are taking you into the architecture of that exact psychological shift. We're examining a really dense, rigorous summary of a foundational philosophy on wealth, Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich.
And we really need to be clear about our mission from the very first minute here.
Yeah, set the baseline for everyone.
Right. We are not reviewing a portfolio strategy today.
Yeah.
If you're tuning in expecting traditional financial advice...
How to balance bonds or something.
Exactly. How to pick a value stock, how to navigate real estate depreciation. You will not find it in this material.
No, not at all.
The premise we are analyzing today dictates that external financial mechanics are entirely secondary.
Secondary to the mind.
Yes. Whether you want to be a day trader, a CEO, an entrepreneur, the battleground is entirely internal. It's a demand for a complete psychological overhaul.
And the baseline rule here, the absolute non-negotiable floor we have to stand on before we look at the 5 core takeaways, is the outright rejection of luck.
That's a huge point.
The source material explicitly calls out the law of averages. It argues that banking on the law of averages is just a fool's errand.
It is a critical distinction.
Yeah.
Because the philosophy does not deny that random chance exists, right?
Sure.
It acknowledges that, mathematically, someone will win the lottery. Someone will inherit an unexpected fortune.
All right, it happens.
But the argument is that building a life strategy around the hope that the universe will randomly dispense a fortune in your direction is fundamentally flawed.
It's passive.
It is an abdication of agency. The core thesis demands uncompromising, absolute responsibility for your own thoughts and actions. You just cannot outsource your success to statistical probability.
Okay, let's unpack this, because if we are throwing out luck and we're throwing out the spreadsheet, where do we actually begin?
You have to start at the foundation.
Right. Before we can talk about concrete actions, we have to look at the brain itself, which leads us into the first major takeaway, mastering the mind.
Which is easier said than done.
Oh, definitely. There is a specific quote that anchors this entire philosophy, and it goes, "If you do not conquer self, you will be conquered by self."
What's fascinating here is the internal division that quote implies.
What do you mean?
Well, it sets up the self not as a single harmonious entity, but as a battleground. It positions your own unexamined mind as your primary adversary.
Wow, your own mind is the enemy.
Until you conquer it, yes. The governing dynamic is that your thoughts are the only things that truly matter.
Yeah.
The material insists that thoughts are literally tangible things. They're powerful structural forces.
Tangible thing.
Yes. But they only solidify into those forces when they are mixed with 3 specific catalysts.
Right, I have them here. Definiteness of purpose, persistence, and a burning desire. Thoughts are things. That phrasing is so deceptively simple, but it really is the fulcrum of the whole concept. It's the core of everything.
Because we're so used to separating the mental from the physical, you know? We think of ideas as these weightless, invisible clouds, and money or businesses as heavy, physical realities.
Right, tangible versus intangible.
But this premise insists that the physical reality of earned riches always begins as a weightless idea. It poses this massive challenge. If you do not see riches in your own thoughts first, by what mechanism could you possibly expect to see them in a bank account?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it actually changes how we view historical shifts.
Oh, yeah, the examples in the text.
Right. The material provides a very specific standard of proof for this. It points to monumental figures, Mahatma Gandhi, George Washington, Martin Luther King.
Yeah.
It asserts that every great leader who has ever altered the course of human history was, at their foundational core, a dreamer.
But I want to make sure we don't misinterpret the word dreamer here.
That's important.
Because when I hear that word, I usually picture someone, I don't know, staring out a window, passively wishing things were different. And that passive definition is exactly what we have to discard. In this context, a dreamer is an architect.
An architect. I like that.
Consider the three figures provided. Gandhi, leading a nation to independence without traditional warfare. Washington establishing a democratic republic out of a colonial rebellion. Martin Luther King driving a systemic civil rights revolution.
All massive, world-changing physical events.
Exactly. But before a single physical action was taken,
Right.
before a march, before a battle, before a piece of legislation was drafted, the entirely invisible, intangible blueprint of that new reality had to be perfectly and completely constructed within the mind of the leader.
The physical world just caught up.
Precisely. The physical world merely caught up to the mental architecture.
So the mind is the origin point for everything material. But the material also presents a pretty severe warning about this machinery. It describes the subconscious mind as a double-edged sword.
The danger lies in its absolute neutrality. Yes. The subconscious does not possess a moral or qualitative filter. It doesn't judge the thoughts it processes. It just merely acts upon them.
It just does what it's told.
Right. You possess the conscious ability to deliberately feed it with whatever thought impulses you choose, which is the mechanism for building that architecture we just discussed.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Because the other edge of that sword is passive absorption.
Yes, the default mode.
If you fail to deliberately plant thoughts into your subconscious, it doesn't just power down and wait for instructions, right? It will pick up random, unintentional thoughts that happen to float into it from your environment.
It's always recording.
Always. And I was trying to visualize this mechanism. I kept coming back to the idea of an incredibly fertile but completely untended piece of land, a garden.
That's a great way to look at it.
If you don't deliberately plant the specific seeds you want, your definite purpose, your goals, the soil doesn't just remain beautifully bare.
No, nature abhors a vacuum.
Exactly. The weeds of unintentional, random thoughts will automatically take over. You can't just leave it to chance. The soil doesn't care if it's growing a prize-winning tomato or a toxic invasive weed. It indiscriminately grows whatever is present.
That analogy aligns perfectly with the underlying mechanics described. You cannot leave the garden of your mind to chance because the environment is constantly dropping seeds of doubt, fear, and aimlessness.
Right.
And the material concludes this section on the mind with a really chilling absolute. It says, if you fail to control your own mind, you may be sure that you will control nothing else.
If you fail to control your own mind, you may be sure that you will control nothing else. Man, that is a brutal diagnosis for anyone who feels stuck.
It really is.
We spend so much energy trying to control our bosses, our employees, the market, our competitors. But this implies that trying to exert external control while your internal garden is full of weeds is just completely futile.
It places the ultimate locus of control entirely inside your own skull. If your subconscious is passively absorbing fear or distraction, those are the thought seeds that will transmute into their physical equivalents.
You'll just grow more fear.
Yes. You will physically manifest that aimlessness in your career. You will physically manifest that doubt in your investments. The external reality is merely a downstream effect of the internal ecosystem.
Okay, so assuming you recognize the danger of the weeds, assuming you realize you must be the active, deliberate gardener of your own subconscious,
Right.
what exactly are you supposed to plant? Because the material makes it painfully clear that casual, vague wishes do not possess the root structure necessary to choke out the weeds.
And this transition leads directly into the second core takeaway, which is a burning desire.
A burning desire.
The text points out a fascinating psychological blind spot here. If you were to walk down the street and ask 100 people what they actually want in life, the vast majority would not be able to articulate a clear answer.
Oh, totally. They would probably give you those hazy, undefined concepts like, I want more money, I want fame, I want security.
And the fundamental rule established here is that the universe, or reality itself, is completely deaf to vaguely expressed wishes.
Deaf to them.
Completely. Wishing for more money is not a blueprint. The subconscious cannot act on a vague concept.
Right.
It requires a burning desire, and that desire must be implemented through highly definite plans and constant persistence.
Which brings us right back to the commander burning his ships on the beach.
Exactly.
That is the ultimate illustration of a burning desire. It's the deliberate destruction of the safety net.
And from a cognitive perspective, eliminating the safety net forces the brain to unlock reserves it usually keeps dormant.
How does that work mechanically?
Well, when a goal resides in the category of a strong preference, the brain will only allocate a certain amount of energy to it. But when survival is inextricably linked to the outcome, when the ships are gone, the brain categorizes the goal as a biological imperative.
It has to happen.
Yes, it marshals every ounce of creativity, energy, and resilience available.
It's like an intentional manipulation of your own survival instincts. And the material frames the result of this manipulation almost like a universal law.
Right.
There's this striking quote, "God seems to throw himself on the side of the man who knows exactly what he wants if he's determined to get just that."
It suggests that reality itself yields, but only to absolute, uncompromising clarity.
Clarity is everything.
The author notes that no one can surgically implant this burning desire into you. You must isolate it within yourself.
You have to find it.
Yes. But they mandate that if your goal is anything beyond pure mediocrity, you absolutely must attach this level of burning desire to a possible outcome.
Let's ground this. Let's say a listener isolates that desire, and as the text suggests, the desired outcome is wealth.
Okay.
How do we practically take that raw, burning, intense emotion and forge it into the physical equivalent of money? The material provides a very rigid 6-step method for this exact transformation.
And this isn't presented as a loose suggestion. It is a strict operational protocol.
Right, it's a manual.
It is a mechanism for giving the subconscious precise instructions. Step 1 is to fix in your mind a specific amount. You cannot just want to be wealthy.
Because wealthy is a subjective, moving target.
Exactly.
The subconscious doesn't know what to do with it. You need a hard number.
Right. Then step 2 introduces the friction of reality. You have to determine exactly what you're going to give in return.
I find this step brilliant because it instantly strips away the fantasy.
Yes.
This isn't about manifesting $1 million appearing under your mattress. You are forced to establish an exchange of value. What service, what product, what labor are you trading for this specific amount?
It grounds the psychological exercise in economic reality.
Totally.
Then step 3 is to establish a definite date.
The deadline. And the psychological necessity of the deadline is massive.
It creates urgency.
Without a date, the subconscious will perpetually delay action. A definite date converts the goal from a distant daydream into an impending reality.
Yes. Step 4 is to create a definite plan for carrying out your desire and to begin at once, whether you are ready or not, to put this plan into action.
Whether you are ready or not, that is the bridge, isn't it?
It is.
It forces the immediate translation of thought into physical movement, completely bypassing the paralysis of perfectionism.
It demands action. Then, step 5 synthesizes the previous steps. You must write out a clear, concise statement summarizing the amount of money you intend to acquire, the time limit for its acquisition, what you intend to give in return, and the plan through which you intend to accumulate it.
You are literally writing the contract.
Yes, a contract with yourself.
And then we arrive at step 6, the step that I think causes the most friction for people.
The daily reading.
Right. You are instructed to read this written statement out loud twice daily, once just before retiring at night, and once after arising in the morning. And as you read, you are supposed to see, feel, and believe yourself already in possession of the money.
The psychological term the material used for this practice is autosuggestion.
Okay, let's debate this. Because the material tries to explain autosuggestion by asking the reader, have you ever exaggerated a story or told a lie until you started to believe in it yourself?
Right.
It claims this daily reading is the exact same mechanism aimed at creating faith inside you. But I really struggle with the intellectual honesty of this. Is this entire philosophy really just built on fake it till you make it?
Yeah.
Are we just telling ourselves a lie twice a day until we become delusional enough to act on it?
I understand the resistance to the concept of the lie. The friction comes from our definition of truth.
How so?
We generally define truth as an accurate reporting of our current physical circumstances.
It's the facts of today.
But autosuggestion is not an exercise in reporting the present. It is the deliberate programming of future expectations.
So it's not a deception about today, it's a forced assumption about tomorrow.
Consider the mechanics of the untended garden we discussed earlier. The subconscious mind does not possess the ability to distinguish between a vividly imagined event and a physical event occurring in reality.
It just absorbs the input.
Yes. When you repeatedly feed it this specific, detailed statement, especially in the transitional states of consciousness right before sleep and right after waking, you are driving those seeds deep into the soil.
I was trying to find a better analogy than the exaggerated lie, and I thought about a method actor.
Oh, that's interesting.
When a dedicated actor is preparing to play a king, they don't walk onto the stage thinking, I am a guy in a costume lying about being royalty.
Right.
They absorb the script, they repeat the lines endlessly, they visualize the environment so intensely that their biology actually responds.
Their heart rate spikes.
Exactly. Their heart rate spikes during a dramatic scene. They produce real tears. The manufactured emotional state becomes functionally real and drives real physical actions on the stage.
Yeah.
Is autosuggestion effectively asking you to become a method actor for your own future?
That captures the dynamic perfectly. The 6-step method is asking you to write the script of your own success.
And then rehearse it.
Right. The actor is transmuting words on a page into a physical performance. By reading your script twice a day, you are rehearsing the reality until your subconscious completely accepts it as inevitable.
Wow.
Once that acceptance occurs, your subconscious will automatically begin directing your conscious choices, your habits, and your actions to align with that rehearsed reality.
Okay, so the script is written. You are doing your twice daily autosuggestion. You have cultivated this burning desire. You are feeling unstoppable in your own mind.
The internal architecture is built.
But then you walk out the front door and the physical world punches you in the mouth. Things go wrong. You hit massive structural walls. The plan fails. What happens then?
That is the ultimate stress test of the philosophy, which requires the third major takeaway, the mechanism of persistence.
Persistence.
Without persistence, the burning desire simply burns out upon first contact with reality.
And to illustrate this mechanism, the material brings in one of the most ruthless and famous industrialists in history, Henry Ford. And this specific anecdote about Ford creating his iconic V8 engine is a masterclass in the collision between a burning desire and physical limitations.
It really demonstrates what happens when an immovable object meets an unstoppable psychological force.
Let's put you right in the room where this happened. Henry Ford gathers his top engineers. He announces that he wants to dominate the market. His plan: to replace their current 4-cylinder motors with an 8-cylinder motor.
Right.
And crucially, he demands that all 8 cylinders be cast in a single, solid block of metal.
Now, note the reaction of the experts here. These are highly trained engineers. They assess the demand against the known laws of physics and metallurgy at the time, and they tell Ford, that cannot be done.
That cannot be done. And Ford doesn't even blink. His response is instantaneous. Produce it anyways.
The engineers attempt to anchor him back to reality. They reiterate, but sir, it is impossible.
Ford issues an absolute directive. Go ahead and stay on the job until you succeed, no matter how much time it takes.
And the material notes that the engineers obeyed because they had no choice. Ford was the boss.
Right.
So they work day and night for months. They exhaust every known technique. They return to Ford and report, sir, we've been working day and night, but as we said, it is impossible.
And Ford just refuses to accept their report. No, it isn't. Stay with it. So they go back into the pressure cooker. More time passes. They return again, defeated. Sorry, Mr. Ford, we haven't found a way to do it.
And he cuts them off again.
Cuts them off. Go right ahead. I want it and I'll have it.
Finally, the dynamic shifts. The engineers reach a point of absolute capitulation.
You give up.
But they do not capitulate to the laws of engineering. They capitulate to Ford's sheer unbending will.
Oh, that's a huge difference.
The text paraphrases their surrender, basically saying, oh, what's the use? This man clearly doesn't know when he's whipped. I might as well give him what he wants.
Amen.
And shortly after that psychological breaking point, the breakthrough occurs. They find a way to cast the V8 block.
This anecdote really forces us to question the actual boundary of limits.
It does.
Because when you analyze this rationally, Ford did not possess the technical knowledge to build that engine. He wasn't bending the laws of thermodynamics. So does a leader's refusal to accept reality actually warp the physical limitations of the world? Or does it merely push human ingenuity past its perceived breaking point?
It is entirely the manipulation of human ingenuity. The material makes a profound assertion here. It says, no one is ever defeated until he or she has accepted that as a reality.
Accepted it as a reality.
The experts had accepted the concept of impossible as their reality. It was a weed in their garden.
Right.
Ford's genius was not mechanical, it was psychological. He categorically refused to let their weed take root in his mind. By creating an environment where failure was not an option and retreat was impossible, he essentially burned their intellectual ships.
Oh, wow. He locked them in a room and said the only exit is through the impossible.
And under that relentless, inescapable pressure, the engineers were forced to abandon their preconceived paradigms and invent an entirely new reality to satisfy the demand.
Which leads to what I think is the most mechanistically brilliant analogy in the entire source material.
The metallurgy analogy.
Yeah. It's a quote directly from Napoleon Hill regarding this exact trait. He says, "There may be no heroic connotation to the word persistence, but the quality is to the character of a man what carbon is to steel."
And that analogy is incredibly precise if you analyze the science behind it.
Let's zero in on that. Think about iron. Iron, in its pure state, is relatively soft. It bends easily, it rusts, it degrades, it is structurally weak.
Right.
If you go the other direction and add an excess of carbon, you end up with cast iron. Cast iron is incredibly hard, but it is also highly brittle. If you strike it with a hammer, it shatters into pieces. But if you take that soft iron and infuse it with the exact right balanced amount of carbon, a molecular transformation occurs. It ceases to be iron. It becomes steel. It gains resilience, flexibility, and a near unbreakable tensile strength.
The implication is that your initial talent, your good idea, or even your burning desire, is merely the raw iron.
It's weak on its own.
Inherently susceptible to the corrosive elements of doubt, fatigue, and external rejection. It is the deliberate daily infusion of persistence, that grinding, unglamorous, non-heroic refusal to quit, that fundamentally alters the structural integrity of your psychology.
Cultivating this steel-like habit provides what the material calls insurance against failure. It completely invalidates the modern obsession with the overnight success.
The material issues a stern warning about that illusion. It states categorically that there is no something for nothing.
No free lunch.
When you observe people who appear to have succeeded without paying the agonizing price of persistence, you are looking at an illusion.
The grass is not greener. The shortcuts are a myth. The text boils it down to the most unyielding axiom. A quitter never wins and a winner never quits.
Which forces a very difficult practical question.
What's that?
Well, if success requires the obsessive drive of Henry Ford, if it requires throwing yourself against the wall of the impossible until the wall breaks, what is the fuel source?
That is the exact question I had. Where does a human being source the boundless, raw, terrifying amount of energy required to sustain that kind of steel-like persistence?
Right, because coffee isn't enough.
Exactly. When the entire world is telling you your business plan is a joke, a daily cup of coffee is not going to provide the horsepower to keep fighting.
No.
The source material points to a deeply primal, incredibly controversial wellspring of energy for this. And this brings us to the fourth major takeaway.
This is perhaps the most misunderstood and complex mechanism in the entire philosophy.
Yeah, I was surprised to see it.
The fourth takeaway identifies the primary fuel source as sexual energy.
Sexual energy. And the material anticipates the listener recoiling from this. It literally states, nope, you didn't get that wrong. It forces you to look at the biological reality of human motivation.
Right. To establish the hierarchy of human drive, the material lists what Napoleon Hill identified as the 5 strongest stimulants known to humanity.
Okay.
These are the forces that most powerfully compel action and override inertia. They are friendship, music, a burning desire for riches, love, and sex.
5 things. And it boldly claims that the desire for sex is the absolute apex of that list.
Number 1.
It points out that this force is so overwhelmingly powerful, so capable of overriding rationality, that it's credited with launching the Trojan War.
And the material refuses to sanitize this concept. To illustrate the sheer irreplaceable biological power of this energy, it uses a stark, undeniable physiological example.
The animal example.
Yes, it asks you to observe the behavioral shift in any animal after it has been castrated.
It's a dramatic, complete behavioral collapse.
It is. The text argues that a castrated animal is the exact physical manifestation of a being stripped of its sexual energy. All of the fight, the territorial drive, the vitality, the aggression required to assert dominance in the world, it completely dissipates. The animal becomes docile.
So the material is drawing a direct, unbroken line between that raw, base biological drive and high-level professional, creative, and financial achievement.
Yes.
It explicitly states that the individuals who have reached the absolute highest echelons of success invariably possess highly developed sexual natures.
But here is where the critical psychological pivot occurs.
Okay, because it's not just about acting on it.
Right. The genius of the philosophy is not advocating for the mere existence or the base physical expression of this desire. The secret lies in a highly demanding internal process called transmutation.
Transmutation. The quote on this is crucial. The transmutation of sex energy to energy and creativity in other endeavors is a primary source of genius.
We really must analyze the mechanics of transmutation here. The material specifies the energy must be transmuted from desire for physical contact into some other form of desire and action before it will lift one to the status of a genius.
So it's a redirection.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It requires taking the exact same intense biological fuel that evolution designed to drive physical pursuit, capturing it, and intentionally redirecting that pressure into the intellect, into complex business strategy, or into the relentless execution of a definite plan.
So what does this all mean? How does a person actually do this? Let's try to map this out with an analogy. I keep picturing a nuclear power plant.
Oh, that's a powerful image.
The uranium, the radioactive material is immensely powerful. It is a force of nature. If you just leave it exposed or if you misuse it, it is wildly destructive.
Right.
It causes fallout, it poisons the environment. But if you build a massive, heavily shielded containment vessel around it, if you carefully control the reaction and you channel all of that terrifying, immense heat to boil water and spin a massive turbine, it produces electricity that can light up an entire metropolis.
Yes.
The electricity, the constructive output that builds empires, is the genius the text talks about. The raw biological sexual desire is the uranium.
That analogy perfectly isolates the necessity of the containment vessel, because the material issues a dire warning about what happens to those who possess the raw uranium, but lack the discipline to build the reactor.
They destroy themselves.
It states that rather than becoming genia because of great sex desires, the vast majority of people lower themselves through the misunderstanding and misuse of this great force to the status of the lower animals.
The energy will express itself. It is a biological law. It will either spin the turbine and power the city of your ambitions, or it will melt down the reactor and destroy your life.
This mechanical reality leads the text to a fascinating chronological observation, actually.
Yeah. About age.
Yes. It offers a psychological explanation for why the vast majority of highly successful individuals do not achieve their major breakthroughs before the age of 40.
I always assumed that under 40 phenomenon was simply a matter of compounding experience. You know, you need 20 years to learn your industry, build a network, and gain self-confidence.
The material acknowledges that experience and confidence are factors, but it argues the primary underlying reason is that constructing the internal nuclear reactor, learning how to effectively contain and transmute this immense biological energy, simply takes time.
It takes decades.
It often requires decades of trial and error. In youth, the sheer volume of the energy frequently overrides the intellect's ability to contain it. The uranium burns too hot.
Wow.
It is only with maturity that an individual develops the profound willpower required to harness the heat for long-term achievement.
And the material brings this struggle right into the present day. It argues that successfully transmuting this energy is exponentially more difficult today than it was a century ago.
Oh, absolutely. Consider the modern environment. We inhabit a technological and media landscape that is explicitly designed to constantly stimulate and immediately monetize basic biological desires.
It's literally everywhere.
The entire digital ecosystem is engineered to trigger the release of that energy for short-term gratification.
You are constantly being prodded. The text points out that building the containment vessel requires immense willpower, the forming of rigorous new habits, and the painful elimination of old behaviors.
It's exhausting.
You are essentially fighting a two-front war. You are fighting your own evolutionary biology, and you are fighting a society engineered to exploit it.
Which explains why mastering transmutation provides such an insurmountable competitive advantage.
Because no one else is doing it.
Right. You're successfully utilizing an internal fusion reactor of energy that 99% of the population is actively squandering.
Okay, let's step back and look at the psychological titan we are building here. You have planted the seeds of a definite purpose. You have ignited a burning desire and burned your ships. You have forged your character into unbreakable steel through persistence. and you are successfully funneling the most potent biological energy in nature directly into your professional execution.
You are built for success.
You should be a juggernaut. What could possibly halt this momentum?
The final insidious barrier, your own internal saboteurs. The architecture will collapse if the foundation is rotting.
Which brings us to the fifth and final takeaway, clearing the path by defeating the 6 ghosts of fear.
The material treats this not as a suggestion, but as a mandatory prerequisite. It explicitly warns, before you can put this philosophy into use, you must conquer your fears.
You have to face them.
A mind paralyzed by fear cannot generate a burning desire. The two states are mutually exclusive.
I want to focus deeply on the specific terminology used here. The text calls them the 6 ghosts of fear. Why ghosts?
It clarifies that immediately.
Right. It states that these fears only exist in your mind and you have the ability to control them if you so desire and if you practice enough.
The choice of the word ghost is a brilliant psychological framing device. Because what is the ghost? It is an apparition. It lacks physical density.
They can't touch you.
A ghost cannot punch you. It cannot steal your wallet. Its only power over the physical world is derived entirely from the terror it induces in the observer.
If you're afraid, it wins.
Right. If you are terrified of the ghost, you will run away, you will abandon your house, you will alter your physical actions. By labeling these deep-seated fears as ghosts, the material is declaring that the things we dread most, poverty, aging, criticism, are not physical barricades. They are phantasms projected by our own untended subconscious.
So to finish this psychological overhaul, we have to walk through this haunted house and look directly at these 6 specific ghosts.
One by one.
The material provides a diagnostic manual for each one, identifying the subtle symptoms of the fear and prescribing a very specific, often radical cure. Let's start with the most common phantom. Ghost number 1, the fear of poverty.
The diagnostic symptom the material identifies for the fear of poverty is deeply counterintuitive.
Yeah, I was surprised by this one.
One might assume the symptom is a frantic hoarding of money or a constant panic over bills. Instead, the material identifies the primary symptom as an indifference towards money, manifesting as a complete lack of ambition.
That is such a subtle, devastating psychological defense mechanism.
How so?
Well, if you are secretly terrified that you lack the capability to succeed financially, if the ghost of poverty is haunting you, the easiest way to protect your ego is to pretend you simply don't care about money.
You fake apathy.
You construct a narrative of apathy. You claim ambition is beneath you.
Apathy becomes an armor against the agony of trying and failing. Furthermore, the material explains the cognitive mechanics of why this fear guarantees failure. It says your mind can't focus on how to become rich if it constantly must worry about how to put food on your table.
It's an issue of processing power. Your brain cannot simultaneously hold a burning, creative desire for massive wealth while the alarm bells of starvation are ringing.
The survival mechanism will always hijack the creative mechanism.
Therefore, the cure prescribed for the ghost of poverty requires a brutal, radical shift in perspective.
It demands an absolute decision.
It demands that you reach an unshakable decision. Whatever wealth you manage to acquire, provided you give your absolute maximum effort, must be accepted as sufficient.
It's a form of financial stoicism, really.
Totally. It demands that you intentionally look at the absolute worst-case scenario, ending up with barely enough to survive and make peace with it in advance.
You accept the worst.
You have to tell yourself, if I grind for 10 years and end up with just a roof and a bowl of rice, I will accept it. The moment you genuinely accept that baseline, the ghost of poverty loses its leverage over you.
The terror evaporates.
The terror evaporates, and your cognitive bandwidth is entirely freed up to focus on the burning desire.
Moving deeper into the house, we encounter the second phantom, the fear of criticism.
Oh, this is a big one.
The diagnostic symptom here is a perpetual nervousness in the presence of others, which fundamentally destroys initiative.
It destroys initiative because initiative requires stepping out of line.
Right. If you try to build something new, you risk failure. And if you fail, the tribe will judge you. The fear of criticism is the fear of being exiled from the safety of the herd.
And the cure the material provides for this is highly provocative. It states that to beat this fear, you must simply stop worrying about what other people think or say.
Easier said than done.
But then it adds a specific behavioral directive. It says, dare to be a little bit cringy sometimes.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Dare to be cringy. I love that phrasing. But let's dig into the mechanics of this. How does embracing the fear of being cringy directly protect the burning desire we cultivated in step 2.
Well, analyze the behavioral requirements of a burning desire. It requires absolute obsession. It requires reading a statement out loud to yourself twice a day.
Right.
It requires behaving like Henry Ford, demanding the impossible while the accredited experts roll their eyes at you.
It looks crazy.
Exactly. To the rational, well-adjusted outside observer, this level of obsession looks ridiculous. It looks unhinged. It looks cringy. If your primary operating system is calibrated to maintain social dignity, if your main goal is to never look foolish at a dinner party, you will never order the engineers to build the V8 engine.
You'll just agree with them.
You will conform to the opinions of the experts to save face.
The fear of being cringy is the desperate desire for camouflage. But extraordinary achievement is, by definition, an abnormality.
You can't be normal and extraordinary at the same time.
Right. You cannot achieve anomalous results while fiercely protecting your status as a normal, blend-in member of the crowd. You must willingly endure looking foolish in the short term to construct the impossible in the long term. You have to walk right through the ghost of social judgment.
That is a harsh but necessary reality. Okay, ghost number 3, the fear of ill health.
The material identifies a particularly insidious symptom for this fear: the habit of faking illness to serve as a socially acceptable alibi for laziness.
We have all felt the temptation of this ghost. You have a massive, intimidating project to start, the resistance is incredibly high, and suddenly you feel a slight tickle in your throat.
Your subconscious seizes the opportunity.
I better take it easy today. I need to rest. I can't work on the business plan. I'm fighting something off. It is the mind generating a phantom physical symptom to escape the agonizing mental exertion of persistence.
It provides a noble excuse for quitting.
Exactly.
And the material provides a very blunt, highly applicable cure for the modern age. To banish this ghost, you must forget about symptoms and, above all, stop looking for them.
The material specifically notes any symptom can be deadly if you Google it.
Yes.
It's a hilarious observation, but mechanically it's profound. If you want a medically validated reason to quit working today, the internet is a limitless dispensary of terminal diagnoses for a tension headache.
By obsessively researching illness, you are deliberately planting the seeds of disease in the untended garden of your subconscious. The cure is to aggressively starve the fear of your attention.
Just ignore it. Ghost number 4, the fear of loss of love of someone.
The primary symptom of this phantom is jealousy.
Jealousy is an incredibly toxic energy drain. It consumes vast amounts of cognitive processing power.
Because jealousy is the futile attempt to control another human being's free will. It is a mathematical impossibility that generates constant grinding anxiety.
So how do you beat it?
To eliminate this massive energy leak, the material's prescribed cure is uncompromisingly severe.
It states that you must reach an absolute decision that you will get along without love if necessary. It explicitly advises that if you are currently single, you should utilize this phase to construct a life where you genuinely learn to appreciate living by yourself.
The underlying logic here mirrors the cure for the fear of poverty. The goal is the complete eradication of dependency.
Right.
If your internal psychological stability requires the constant influx of another person's affection to remain upright, you are built on a fragile foundation. You are holding a vulnerability that will perpetually generate the phantom of jealousy. By mastering the art of living alone, you achieve emotional self-sufficiency.
It's building your own internal gravity, and the material adds a crucial caveat. Then everything beyond that is just a bonus.
Exactly.
It doesn't mean you reject love. It means love becomes a beautiful addition to an already structurally sound life, rather than the single load-bearing pillar you are terrified might crack.
We then confront the fifth ghost, which is rooted in the inescapable passage of time: the fear of old age.
The diagnostic symptom here is language. It's the habit of speaking apologetically about one's age, uttering phrases like, "I'm too old to pivot my career," or "I've missed my window."
It is the psychological error of treating time as a corrosive enemy rather than an accumulating asset.
The material prescribes a cure that requires a complete cognitive reframe. It instructs you to eliminate this fear by accepting aging not as a physiological handicap, but as a profound blessing.
A blessing.
Because aging is the only vehicle that delivers the possibility of superior wisdom and advanced self-control.
This connects directly back to our discussion on the transmutation of sexual energy.
Right, the containment vessel.
The raw nuclear energy of youth is practically useless without the containment vessel of mature self-control. Age is the process of building that reactor.
And the material caps off this reframe with a deeply practical financial observation. And hopefully the wonders of compound interest have been working in your favor for a while.
A structural reminder that time is the ultimate leverage. It multiplies both intellectual wisdom and financial capital, but only if you have spent your earlier years meticulously tending the garden and planting the right seeds.
Which brings us to the final room in the haunted house, the sixth ghost, the apex phantom, the fear of death.
The ultimate unknown. The symptom the material highlights is a paralyzing preoccupation with dying, which fundamentally prevents the individual from living their life to the fullest.
The material states that the reason you must conquer this fear is self-evident. You cannot build an empire if you are paralyzed by existential dread. But I want to focus on the incredibly vivid, almost absurd imagery the author uses to deflate this fear. They write, "I can't imagine that anyone who is spending his days worrying about the fires of hell or having to spend an eternity wearing a nightgown can ever be happy."
That specific phrase, an eternity wearing a nightgown, is a masterful psychological tactic.
Yeah.
It attacks the grandeur of the fear.
It's brilliant. It takes this massive, crippling, unknowable terror of the afterlife, and it shrinks it down into a slightly comical, ridiculous image.
It makes it silly.
Exactly. It forces the brain to short-circuit the panic and recognize the complete uselessness of the worry.
The material delivers the final cure for this ultimate fear with cold, unshakable pragmatism. It dictates the endless nap is inescapable, learn to accept it.
The endless nap, you cannot fight it, you cannot negotiate with it. So why allow the phantom of it to dictate the terms of the only waking hours you possess?
This brings us to the ultimate synthesis of this entire section on the six ghosts. The material provides a universal law for killing off all six of these fears permanently.
Let's hear it.
You must arrive at the irrevocable conclusion that nothing life has to offer is worth the price of constant worry.
Let that statement sink in. Nothing life has to offer is worth the price of constant worry. That is a paradigm-shifting metric for evaluating your life.
It changes everything.
If you possess millions of dollars, but you are constantly haunted by the ghost of losing it, or the ghost of criticism, or the ghost of ill health, you are not wealthy. You have already been conquered by self. The weeds have entirely overrun the garden.
Which brings this deeply complex psychological journey full circle to our starting premise.
Let's pull all of these threads together. We set out today to examine a complete psychological operating system for success. What have we actually built?
We have established that the genesis of all wealth is internal. You must accept that your thoughts are tangible things, and you must seize absolute deliberate control over the untended garden of your subconscious mind.
Once you own the garden, you cannot plant vague wishes. You must isolate a burning desire, burn the ships of your safety nets, and meticulously program your subconscious through this six-step method and the daily friction of autosuggestion.
When the physical world resists that programming, you must manufacture the persistence of Henry Ford, infusing the raw iron of your ambition with the carbon of daily effort until your character becomes unbreakable steel.
To fuel that relentless, grueling process, you must recognize the biological reality of your own primal energies. You must build the internal reactor to contain and transmute your sexual energy, channeling it directly into your creative and professional execution.
And finally, to protect this incredibly powerful internal machinery, you must systematically walk through the phantoms of your own mind. You must banish the six ghostly fears by radically accepting reality, eliminating dependency, and refusing to pay the exorbitant tax of constant worry.
It is a staggering demand on the individual. It requires fighting your own biology, ignoring the judgment of society, and taking absolute ownership of your reality. And it leaves me with a final provocative thought, something I really want you to mull over as you navigate your day tomorrow.
Okay.
Well, we started this journey noting the comfort of a spreadsheet. We love the illusion that success is a neat external checklist. But this material forces us to realize the entire war is waged inside the confines of your own skull.
It is all internal.
So consider the logical extreme of what we've discussed today. The material insists that thoughts are things and that nothing life has to offer is worth the price of constant worry. How would the physical trajectory of your life radically change tomorrow morning if you treated every single anxious thought, every spike of panic about your bank account, every agonizing fear of what your colleagues might whisper about you, every excuse your body invents to avoid hard work, not as a diagnostic truth you have to obey, but literally as a ghost?
Just a phantom.
What if you viewed every fear as a completely hollow phantom with absolutely zero physical density, an illusion that you possess the sheer, uncompromising power to to simply walk right through.
It alters the entire landscape of decision-making. If you genuinely recognize that the ghost lacks the mass to stop you, its power over your physical actions completely evaporates. The barrier was never real.
And once you realize the ghosts aren't real, the path to that burning desire is completely unobstructed.